they've got, their two main businesses. They've got their smartphone business and they've also got their chip business. It looks as though some of the strength came through on the smartphone side of things, but is that enough to counter the weakness on the chip side?
So we are seeing continuing weakness in that chip business. This has been a global story, not just for Samsung, but for many other chip makers. Supply glut, overall weakness in demand, even trade tensions playing into that. And we've seen in recent quarters, Samsung's chip operating profit has declined. Now, other segments of its business, like you mentioned, consumer electronics, that's that CE on the chart that you're looking at, that has stayed pretty steady. What this next quarter, the third quarter, is showing is some strength in that smartphone segment, the consumer electronics. And that's partly because Samsung released its Galaxy Note 10. This is one of its premium devices. It released that new lineup in August. And there are some indications that those devices are taking some share away from Samsung's number one competitor, which is Huawei, the second biggest smartphone seller in the world, partially here in Europe, due to that Huawei phone not having some of the Google licensed apps that we've seen. So it looks like smartphone sales are strong. We also have that Galaxy Fold finally on sale. That's a $2,000 device. If that sells well, it could be good for margins for Samsung too.
And Samsung, I believe, is one of the biggest semiconductor firm by revenue in the world. And people associate it with just a hardware company, but obviously it is also the largest semiconductor. What did the results for this quarter tell you about the industry as a whole? I mean, are they somewhat of a bellwether for the semiconductor industry?
Certainly. I mean, Samsung, that's right. Samsung is the leader in this space. And what many of the analysts this morning are hoping is the case is that we are seeing a bottoming out in this chip sector in the industry. Now, part of that, as we mentioned just now, is led by smartphones. The other part is led by this broader demand from, for example, 5G, and the fact that more devices will be connected, therefore that there will need more chips. So this could boost chip makers like Samsung. The other business that Samsung's investing in quite heavily is actually telecommunications equipment, and it still has less than 5% market share in that industry, but it's trying to position itself as a competitor to some of the other players like Huawei, Ericsson, and Nokia.
One quick final question for you. For a while last year, we heard from analysts this idea that people weren't upgrading their smartphones as frequently as they had in the past because it was an iterative improvement. With the implementation of 5G, is that set to change?
Looks like the demand for the 5G phone is strong. For example, in South Korea, there's some reports that the 5G Galaxy Note is the most best-selling phone there. So that's an interesting data point. We don't have a lot yet on exactly where these 5G devices stand with consumers. And for example, Apple hasn't even released a 5G device. Yeah. But if it looks like consumers are lining up to go buy 5G devices, whether it's from Samsung or Huawei or some of the other Chinese competitors, that will be an interesting dynamic for Apple as it doesn't have that device, especially going into the holiday season.
Good point, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for joining us. Elizabeth Schulze, our European tech reporter there.
And coming up on the show, the NBA is caught in the crosshairs of tensions between anti-government protests in Hong Kong and China. More on that when we come back.
I'm a bit of a design show addict, so it was really exciting to have my own before and after moment through Modsy. It blew me away.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
The office waste paper bin. Old documents, expired contracts, now just crumpled up paper. It doesn't sound risky, does it? Security breaches involving sensitive and confidential information continue to rise. Can you be sure all your information is secure? Book a free 30-minute data security survey with Shreddit, the document destruction experts, to pinpoint security risks specific to your industry. Search free survey Shreddit to book yours today. Shreddit. We protect what matters.
MSNBC is on TuneIn. Get up-to-the-minute coverage on news and events from around the world with MSNBC's live 24/7 station on TuneIn. At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with MSNBC's full lineup of shows, including Hardball with Chris Matthews.
Hi, I'm Chris Matthews. Thanks for listening to MSNBC on TuneIn.
And The Rachel Maddow Show. Plus, when news breaks, MSNBC has you covered with live updates, expert analysis, and more. Search MSNBC on TuneIn today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: A digital audio file made available on the internet typically is a series of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Welcome back to Street Science. Well, one of our top stories today is to do with the London Stock Exchange. The board of directors of the LSE has issued a statement just in the past few minutes in which they have reiterated that the firm will move ahead with its deal to buy Refinitiv. The statement says the company remains committed to and continues to make good progress on the deal and expects it will close in the second half of next year. The board will seek shareholder approval for the transaction at an extraordinary general meeting that is set to take place next month. And our colleague Juliana has dashed back from the London Stock Exchange. You're joining us now live in the studio, probably a little bit warmer here than outside on the road. But look, we're seeing a big reaction in the stock price today. LSE shares are down about 6%. How much risk premium was there actually baked into the LSE shares to begin with once the story initially emerged a couple of weeks back?
Well, it's a pretty big reaction we're seeing today. But before the Hong Kong Exchange offer came through on September 11th, we were trading around £68 per share. So we're still above where we were then. You can see there we're about £70 per share. So we're above that level. It's also important to think about where we've come since August when the Refinitiv deal was announced. Shares were trading well below $60 per share. So going the route of Hong Kong Exchange would have introduced significant downside risk for the stock because it would have meant that they would drop the Refinitiv deal and obviously go back to where we were pre-August if the Hong Kong deal didn't work out. So yes, we're retreating a little bit this morning, but still hanging on to those gains that we saw come through since August.
Just remind me, what was at stake here in terms of the attempted business model, the differences between these two deals for LSE?
LSE and Hong Kong Exchange, had they come together, would have created an East meets West platform, a global infrastructure exchange. And this is the direction in which a lot of investors, analysts, company management think the direction of the industry is going, that we are going to see consolidation of these regional exchanges into a global exchange. And this would have created an 18-hour trading zone. So Hong Kong Exchange was offering LSE a way to be the gateway to China and back and forth. So now that has fallen away, Refinitiv offers a different path, a very different proposition where they are going down the data path and will create a platform that can compete with the likes of Bloomberg.
Is it likely that Hong Kong Stock Exchange perhaps set their sights on another exchange market within the European geographic time zone? Clearly, that was the focus of theirs. Or do you think it's a case of just sitting back, given how many challenges and obstacles they faced in this particular scenario?
Well, the management so far is saying they're going to focus their efforts on Asia and on China, Hong Kong, and Asia more broadly. But I wouldn't rule it out, given what I've been hearing from analysts and investors. Just yesterday, we were speaking to Stephen Grobe from Vision 57, who suggested that perhaps Deutsche Börse could become part of the mix here. They, of course, don't have the Refinitiv angle that has prevented or been part of what's prevented LSE shareholders from getting on board. But still, the political and regulatory uncertainty would weigh on that tie-up as well.
Juliana, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for coming back to join us to explore some of those updates in a bit more detail. Well, back to one of our top stories this morning. The US has added 28 Chinese companies and public security bureaus to an economic blacklist. The Commerce Department said that concerns over Beijing's treatment of Muslim minorities in northwest China had precipitated the move. It comes ahead of high-level trade talks between Washington and Beijing later this week, of course. Meanwhile, the Chinese state broadcaster CCTV has said it will immediately suspend its broadcasting deal with the NBA and, quote, will investigate all exchanges that involve the American Basketball League. CCTV has also condemned the NBA president, Adam Silver, after he, in turn, defended a tweet from the general manager of the Houston Rockets that supported protesters in Hong Kong. Silver has said the league backed the executive's freedom of expression. The Chinese state-backed channel said any statement that, quote, challenges national sovereignty and social stability does not qualify as free speech. James Pethokoukis, economic policy analyst at American Enterprise Institute, joins us now very early on the East Coast. Thanks so much for getting up for us, James. Let's talk about free speech. How does it come between the US and China when it comes to business?
Listen, I think it's going to force a lot of American companies perhaps to make some difficult choices, both when it comes to like how their employees operate in social media, but more importantly, about actually doing business in China. I mean, there's a precedent here. The precedent is South Africa in the 1980s, where there began a cultural boycott encouraging performers, other creative people, not to go to South Africa because it was a pariah nation. I can easily see how there'll be increasing pressure on the NBA, on Hollywood, to really limit or change how it does business in China. Perhaps no more red carpet premieres in Shanghai, as long as there are crackdowns in Hong Kong and internment of Uyghurs in Western China. So I think it could really fundamentally alter the way a lot of Americans operate in China, a lot of American businesses operate in China.
So that's American businesses. Let's talk about American politicians and officials and these trade discussions that we're going to see resume on Thursday. That building behind you, the Capitol, home to congressmen and women, I wonder, do you think they've been vocal enough about the potential for these talks to break down and the impact that would have on the U.S. economy?
Yeah. Listen, I think the kind of deal that was apparently fairly close to happening last spring, which was kind of what you might expect, more purchases of U.S. products, including agriculture, Chinese promises to tighten up IP and this forced technology transfer issue. I think it's very unlikely to get that kind of deal anymore now that there's more of a national security issue, human rights issue. That kind of deal, I think, just would not go over well politically, when clearly now many Americans, including many American politicians, are viewing China as more of a threat, more of kind of a multipolar threat, and not just economics. So I think people need to start bracing themselves. This trade war is not going away. It's not going to be dialed down, and it's going to be with us.
And indeed, James, I just want to pick up on that point. There seems to be bipartisan support when it comes down to cracking down on China. And as you mentioned, and now we're shifting away from it purely being a trade war to emerging into a tech war, and also recently, overnight, now a cultural boycott. What type of precedent does that set for future discussions, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president? Is the relationship with China permanently going to be changed for the future?
Listen, I don't see how there can be a deal that is going to return sort of the pre-Trump status quo with very low tariffs and just treating China as it is a country moving on the long road to becoming a liberal democracy like Korea. Politicians are not going to accept that on the left and right. Democrats haven't said a lot so far, the Democratic presidential candidates, about China. But the ones who have, such as Elizabeth Warren, have outlined a fairly tough stance that does not anticipate going back to the pre-Trump status quo, or saying, look, we're just going to like revive the Pacific trade deal. I think the debate has moved beyond that, and I think you're talking about a long-term clash, not necessarily militarily, but very heightened tensions, for the foreseeable future.
James, I want to switch tack, but from thousands of miles away from Washington, it's quite complex as an issue to try and unravel. The president has said he wants to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. We've seen members of his own party very publicly say that's a terrible idea. And yet those same members of his party, of course, are the ones that are going to defend him seemingly to the hilt when it comes to this impeachment inquiry. How does that dynamic between the president and members of his own party play out over the next few months, do you think?
I think the numbers you really want to look for are the president's approval ratings among Republicans. The House is going to impeach President Trump, and then it will go to the Senate. And the question then is, how many senators, Republican senators, if any, would vote to convict the president? Now, right now, I think the smart money is that number is something approximating 0. But I don't think that's necessarily a sure thing. I think there are all sorts of Republican senators who are wildly unhappy with this president, who thought if they could vote to convict the president and not lose their jobs, they would. A rather high number. 30, maybe more. And I think you're seeing it. Some of the I think minimal blowback against the president's Syria moves show just how deep that discontent is. And we'll see what else comes out in this impeachment trial, which might make it more politically viable for these Republican senators, to vote against the president.
James Patoukakis, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us live, very early hours from Washington, D.C. Before we head out, quick look at U.S. futures. European equities are trading firmly in the red, but we've got somewhat of a mixed picture for U.S. futures. We'll leave you with a screenshot of that. But otherwise, that is it for our show today. I'm Jemana Versace.
I'm Bill Marks, FOREX Exchange. Up next.
But that's just not smart. Instead, it's our... We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month, with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Welcome aboard Europe's 169th safest airline.
You were like my 169th biggest crush in school.
Your total body age is 169.
The number 169 never screamed glamour until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of October 2019. £3,487.50p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
The nights have started to draw in. And at DFS, we know that can only mean one thing. Everyone will want to spend more time at home, getting nice and cozy. Ah, you can't beat it. That's why all our sofas are handmade to order, and many are guaranteed to be delivered in time for Christmas. So you can look forward to cozying up this winter, knowing your new sofa won't let you down. DFS.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn on the App Store today.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Kelsey Ballerini and Halsey are doing a CMT Crossroads together. And not surprising since Kelsey posted clips of them doing karaoke. They're taping the episode on October 11th and it'll air early next year. Speaking of country collaborations, Tim McGraw posted a video on Instagram of what looks like him and Shy Carter rehearsing in an empty arena. They're on stage performing their new song, Way Down. To hear music from Kelsey Ballerini and Tim McGraw, search Country Roads on TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca, the Daily Sports Update. The Yankees are at the Twins. Oh, Game 4.
Yeah, it's a postseason. Guys are going to step up. Like I said, guys are going to keep next man up. Guys are going to keep stepping up. And what I've noticed, the past two games is guys just doing their job. Our big mantra all year has been, control the zone.
And the Yankees are leading Division Series right now. That first pitch is going to be at 8:07 p.m. Eastern. If you want to catch this game, search MLB, either favorite Yankees or Twins. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
The throw, he steps up, he's going deep down the right side. Andrews.
You can listen to it all for free.
The end zone, touchdown.
At home, on campus, or on the road, hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
5 at 5. New salvos fired in the ongoing U.S.-China trade war, putting investors and business owners on edge. It is not just trade. why a new rift is forming between China and the NBA over Hong Kong. We'll connect the dots. The chips, they keep falling for Boeing. It now faces a new $100 million lawsuit over the grounded 737 MAX. Pressure keeps growing on Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. New details on the antitrust investigation into the social network that broke overnight. And the stock deal socked. Hong Kong dropping its bid to buy the London Stock Exchange. We'll tell you why it matters on this Tuesday, October 8th, as Worldwide Exchange begins right now. You know, it is raining outside, by the way, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area. And my team, the song is called A Fool in the Rain. I don't know if that was some sort of a knock. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome from wherever in the world that you may be watching. I am Brian Sullivan. Thanks for joining us. All right, talk about one specific trade war casualty. You got to check out shares of semiconductor maker Ambarella. They are down about 12% in the pre-market. They've got a lot of exposure to China. Well, now just 10%. They've got a lot of exposure to China, and one company specifically that was blacklisted by the Trump administration overnight. As soon as people connected the dots between the blacklist of a company called Hikvision and Ambarella sells a lot to Hikvision. You could see it just sold off immediately, come off a little bit off its lows, but this is an exact and specific example of how American companies, they can get hit like that on trade war headlines. Well, the trade war is certainly impacting the markets and your money directly. We'll get more on this and other stories, but first, trade, of course. What else? Likely to dominate trading once again. And the twists and turns, well, they just keep coming. Markets have been mirroring those twists and turns. Futures right now, they're actually lower. This after about a 100-point drop in the Dow yesterday. But of course, even with these drops, we somehow still remain within just about 2% of all-time highs. Every time we drop, we kind of go back up. It's been a day-to-day story. Certainly Dow futures down 21 right now. Bonds, they've also been a big story. Yet again, yields, they've been backing up. They're at 1.55%. Now, if you want to find an upside, good for mortgage rates as well. We're lucky enough to have Diana Olick in the house today as well. But certainly, as yields come down, maybe those refis and new purchase mortgages are going to heat up. Look at that. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 3.63%. A little bit higher than it was at the bottom of yields. But still, hey, if you want to buy a house or refi, not bad rates. All right, around the world, let's go see what the Asia markets did overnight because we had Hong Kong and Japan. They came back to trading. Mild gains. Japan is a market to watch. Japan rose another percent on every level. The Japanese market is the cheapest developed market in the world. It hadn't mattered. The Nikkei hasn't done well. But over the last couple of weeks, it looks like traders are trying to drive that Japanese market higher. Just something to keep in mind. And in the European markets, let's get a check on that. There we go. It's amazing how that works. Boom. We're seeing a mixed trade there. All right, let's get now to your top story. And I guess the word of the year is trade. Just as a new round of top-level talks are set to begin this week, the Trump administration releasing a new list of blacklisted Chinese technology companies, causing yet another rift in the trade fight. Eunice Yoon joining us now with more on this story from Beijing. Eunice.
Thanks so much, Brian. Well, China's message to the U.S. today is butt out of our domestic affairs. At its regular press briefing, the Foreign Ministry criticized the Commerce Department for expanding its blacklist to include 28 Chinese entities on the grounds of violating the human rights of the Muslim minority group in the far west known as the Uyghurs. The ministry went on hinting that it could retaliate, saying Beijing would continue to take firm and resolute measures to protect its sovereignty. Now, many of the listed companies like surveillance camera company Hikvision today came out with statements strongly opposing the Commerce Department's decision and also saying that they were very concerned and would work with the U.S. government because they're concerned that that ban would block American tech firms from supplying critical components to these companies. Now, the U.S. decision will likely complicate the trade talks set for later this week. The Commerce Ministry today confirmed that the Vice Premier, Liu He, is going to be heading to Washington for high-level discussions on Thursday and Friday with his U.S. counterparts, of course, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. Now, the prospects for a deal had already looked dim since the weekend because there were reports out that the Chinese were thinking of dropping altogether one of the very important demands of the U.S., and that is the longstanding concern about state subsidies. Still, right now, Brian, President Trump said overnight he's hoping for a big deal, but a lot of the people that I speak to here don't think things look very good and are thinking that maybe at best we would see an agreement to talk again between the two leaders at the APEC summit in Chile, which is in November.
Well, when you're blacklisting firms just 24 to 48 hours before you're supposed to sit down and have talks with the country that has those firms, well, maybe that's a little bit of a twist. Eunice, don't go away. While we have you, I want to talk about something else and a big and growing story, and that is the growing battle between China and the National Basketball Association. New developments this morning. Apparently, China's state broadcasters saying that it's not going to show any NBA preseason broadcast countrywide.
Yeah, and not only that, just a couple of minutes ago, Brian, Tencent, the private company that also broadcasts NBA games, said that they are also going to halt all of their NBA broadcasts. And again, this is just a continued fallout because of a tweet that the general manager of the Houston Rockets put out, seeming to support the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. So CCTV, the state broadcaster, said that they were strongly dissatisfied with Commissioner Adam Silver's defense for the Houston Rockets GM's tweets supporting those protesters, saying, "We believe that any speech that challenges national sovereignty and social stability is not within the scope of freedom of speech." Now, like I said, it's not only affecting the broadcasts, but it's also had a knock-on effect in other areas as well. In fact, the Chinese Basketball Association, which has a relationship with the NBA, said that it's canceled all 4 NBA games scheduled in China on October 19th and 20th. And even the term Houston Rockets can now no longer be searched on Alibaba and JD's shopping sites. And I think it just highlights the difficulties that not only American companies have, but international companies have more broadly when it comes to touching on a very sensitive topic, and that is Hong Kong for Beijing.
But you think about that. I mean, the government has acted, and a day later, the 2 biggest shopping sites in China wiped the Houston Rockets off their net. Can you imagine that if in the United States, the Trump administration said something and 24 hours later, Amazon stopped selling whatever product that was? I mean, the tie-in there is incredible. And by the way, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, he's due to go to China later on this week.
Yeah, well, in terms of the government's influence, it has a whole lot of influence over what Chinese companies say and do. And the private companies, though, you just don't know whether or not they're being instructed to do so. Very likely, or just as likely, you could see that private companies make these decisions themselves because they understand the winds of the times. So, it's interesting that Adam Silver is going to be coming here. He might not get the hero's welcome that he probably would, just because the fact of the matter is that the NBA has been incredibly popular. In fact, on social media, one of the comments has been that what it took David Stern to build in 30 years, Adam Silver and the GM Houston Rockets general manager took 3 days to unwind.
Well, listen, it's a long road. It's a couple days later. It will come back together, certainly. The Houston Rockets, second most popular team in China. Eunice Yoon, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, well, let's tie everything now together if we can. I mean, with all these disparate stories, and welcome in Lucy McDonald, Global Equities Chief Investment Officer at Allianz Global Investors. And Lucy, we've got to stop meeting like this because I think now for about 2 years, we've talked about trade, the trade war, trading, the trade war. You might have heard about the trade war and the global economy, by the way. I mean, at what point do we just What did Mozart or somebody say, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome? I mean, at what point do we just factor this into all of our models and move on?
Well, I think this one is going to run and run. And there are some long, deep-seated issues here to do with state subsidies, to do with intellectual property and cybersecurity, which are not going to go away. And so I think that the expectation is that the tensions will remain around all of those subjects. But is it possible, even so, to get a de-escalation of the tariff war? And I think that's what we're hoping for. I think our hopes and expectations have probably been more limited of what we'll settle for as far as markets are concerned. So that's what we'll be looking for, to see if some agreement can be reached on any of those issues. And then if the talks can keep going, because as long as the talks, keep going, then we don't, go into a real sort of nuclear situation. But as I say, our expectations have certainly shrunk.
Yeah, and we know that that ties into the macro story that global economies are slowing down. Europe appears to be slowing down a little bit. China's definitely slowing down. The U.S. is probably slowing down. But is there enough money? A fancy word for that would be liquidity. Is there enough liquidity in the world to mitigate the slowdown's impact on stocks and maybe keep a floor underneath the equities markets globally?
Well, there has been so far this year.
Yep.
And as you know, we've seen the 180-degree turnaround at the Fed from the end of last year to the beginning of this. And that has coincided with the deceleration in growth, which is down to trade, but it has meant that markets have remained pretty strong, and until quite recently. However, if you look back a year ago, we're up sort of 2%. So it's been a pretty flat return with a lot of volatility, and that really has been our expectation. So can we keep these levels? So I think the central banks are all pretty focused on maintaining liquidity. They really have not forgotten the financial crisis, and they don't want to go back there. So that mean they will be, they'll err on the side of caution, we think, still.
Does that mean that our viewers and listeners right now, Lucy, they can own equities even in a slowing economic environment and feel relatively safe?
They should own selective equities, and I think this is a time where it really does make sense to be active. The last 10 years, you've been able to just invest in the index, and you've made a very decent return with very low volatility. Now, that environment, I think, is changing, and you should now expect from the markets overall, the equity markets, much lower returns and some higher volatility, and that means that you do need to be a little bit more selective and active and really focus on quality. So when you're looking at the stocks that you want to buy, really focus on companies which have got good returns, which have got low debt, which have got managements which have shown that they can deal with trade wars. They're agile enough to move their operations around if they need to. So that's what you need to be in this more tough environment. You need to be in the hands of management who are experienced and trustworthy.
Lucy McDonald of Allianz. Lucy, thank you very much. I have a feeling our trade talks are not over. Thank you. All right, when we come back on this busy Tuesday, Boeing facing a new round of lawsuits over the grounded 737 MAX. Then, calling it quits, fallout from a broken deal for the London Stock Exchange, at least one deal. And later, slowing growth at Samsung, not enough to keep investors away from that stock. Busy hour still ahead when Worldwide Exchange returns.
Sometimes
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. If you buy items from EU suppliers or sell to EU customers, there'll be new requirements affecting businesses of all sizes. You'll need an EORI trader number and know how to make a customs declaration. You'll also need to make sure you have the right supporting documents for the goods you buy and sell. Find out more about how to prepare. Follow the step-by-step guide at gov.uk/Brexit-traders.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money. And times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
MLB is right here on TuneIn.
A swing and a drive to right field. That's it. Well, Ramirez back, and that ball's gone.
And to find it all, you need to search MLB on TuneIn.
By the wall, out of here.
Home and away calls are a click away on TuneIn Premium.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most. From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Remind you, Thursday night football is happening this week. 8:20 p.m. Eastern is kickoff. We've got the New York Giants at the New England Patriots. Now, to find it, search NFL, favorite your team so you don't miss any of the action.
The under center on the retreat, dropping back. He's pressured. He rolls right. He throws it down the right side for an open Bolden. Catches the 5 into the end zone. Touchdown.
Make sure to favorite your team and search NFL. That way you don't miss any of the games. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
All right, welcome back and good morning. New this morning, pilots at one major U.S. airline are taking Boeing to court, claiming that the grounding of the 737 MAX has cost them millions of dollars in lost salary. Bertha Coombs here this morning with more on this story. Bertha.
Yeah, a lot of stakeholders here. Southwest Airlines Pilots Union have filed a lawsuit against Boeing, alleging the grounding of the 737 MAX has cost them more than $100 million in lost wages. Southwest is the largest operator of the MAX with 34 in its fleet when the jet was grounded worldwide back in March. It had 41 more planes on order for this year, but those deliveries now remain frozen. The union says pilots agreed to fly the 737 MAX based on Boeing's sales pitch that it was airworthy and similar to previous time-tested 737 models that they'd flown for years. In a statement, it says that was false and that, quote, Boeing's errors cost the lives of 346 people, damaged the critical bond between pilots and passengers, and reduced opportunities for air travel across the U.S. and around the world. The union says the grounding has forced the cancellation of more than 30,000 flights. A Boeing spokesman says the lawsuit is meritless and that the company will vigorously defend itself. The company says it will continue to work with Southwest to safely return the MAX to service. Of course, we don't know when that is. Southwest is keeping the MAX off its schedule until at least early January, pending its recertification by the FAA. Brian?
All right, Bertha, thank you. We'll see you in a few minutes. All right, also developing this morning, the owners of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange announcing it will drop its more than $36 billion offer to buy the London Stock Exchange. This after failing to win enough shareholder support. Marks an end to its attempt to create a global capital markets operator and break up rival LSE's deal for data providing company Refinitiv. Shares right now of the Hong Kong market are up, London down just over 5%. All right, still on deck. Turning up the heat on Facebook as U.S. regulators look to put the squeeze on the media giant. And later, no Netflix account? No problem. How anybody who wants to see Martin Scorsese's latest movie, The Irishman, now has a new way to watch. That story, straight ahead.
Sometimes Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with the Daily Sports Update. The Yankees are at the Twins. Oh, Game 4.
Yeah, it's a postseason. Guys are going to step up. Like I said, guys are going to keep next man up. Guys are going to keep stepping up. And what I've noticed, the past two games is guys just doing their job. Our big mantra all year has been, control the zone.
And the Yankees are leading division series right now. That first pitch is going to be at 8:07 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to catch this game, search MLB, either favorite Yankees or Twins. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today. TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
The throw, he steps up, he's going deep down the right side.
You can listen to it all for free.
The end zone, touchdown.
At home, on campus, or on the road, hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal, every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern, only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Make sure to follow TuneIn today, so you're always in the know. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just search @TuneIn.
All right, welcome back. Let's get a check on some of your big individual stock stories on this Tuesday. As many as 40 states' attorneys general plan to join an antitrust probe of Facebook. It is being led by New York. Several AGs meeting yesterday in Washington with officials from both the FTC and the DOJ. And reports say that group included Makan Delrahim, who heads the DOJ's antitrust division. Samsung says it expects third quarter profit to fall more than 50%, but as bad as that is, it might still beat forecasts, thanks to strong sales of the new Galaxy Note 10 smartphone, offsetting the slump in Samsung's memory chip business. And Oracle plans to add about 2,000 jobs as it expands its cloud business. The company telling Reuters many of the jobs will be in Seattle, right in Amazon's backyard, as well as the San Francisco area and India. All right, still to come here on Worldwide Exchange, rising risks. The oldest, newest weapon that real estate developers are using to fight rising tides. Diana Olick in-house and has that story. And later, invest like it's 2015, why Credit Suisse is calling for a semi-recession. Stick around.
Yes, the chance of being abducted by aliens is about 1 in 7 million. Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Its Dolby Atmos gives you a surround sound experience that's out of this world, and there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Taylor Swift tells Rolling Stone magazine that living a quiet life still causes drama. She says, I decided I needed to live a quiet life. I didn't realize I was inviting people to feel they had the right to sort of play my life like a video game. Meanwhile, the Daily Mail claims Ed Sheeran has donated 18 pairs of his old slippers to charity. Most of the Nike, Dolce & Gabbana, Converse, and Air Jordan slippers are expected to sell for as much as $250 a piece. For music from Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran, search today's hits on TuneIn.
These are the top stories everyone's talking about on TuneIn.
Joaquin Phoenix on doing a sequel to Joker.
I talked to Todd a lot about what else we might be able to do. In general, just working together, but also specifically, is there something else with Joker that might be interesting?
John Hamm on whether or not he and Tom Cruise play topless volleyball in the sequel to Top Gun.
I can't confirm or deny.
Can you tell us anything?
I think what I can say is that I'm definitely on the on-ramp to the highway to the danger zone.
Okay.
The Weekend Update hosts make fun of Pete Davidson, even though he's not on Saturday Night Live this week.
A man who drove his car to a music festival still cannot remember where he parked his car a week after the show. Well, we hope you make it back soon, Pete.
Why don't you search TuneIn to hear all the latest for yourself? From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with the Daily Sports Update. The Yankees are at the Twins. Oh, Game 4.
Yeah, it's a postseason. Guys are going to step up. Like I said, guys are going to keep next man up. Guys are going to keep stepping up. And what I've noticed, the past 2 games is guys just doing their job. Our big mantra all year has been, control the zone.
And the Yankees are leading division series right now. That first pitch is going to be at 8:07 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to catch this game, search MLB, either favorite Yankees or Twins. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
All right, welcome back. Every day we like to show you one big number that you need to know about, something to make you just a little bit smarter than an annoying guy in the cubicle next to you at the office. Well, today that big number is $378 billion. That was the U.S. trade deficit with China last year, and that number was a jump of more than 11% from the year before. All right, let's now get a check on this morning's other top headlines outside of the world of money and business. NBC's Francis Rivera in New York now with those. Good morning, Francis.
Hey, Brian, good morning to you. We start with President Trump, who is sparking backlash from within his own party with his abrupt decision to abandon Kurdish fighters in Syria. In a rare rebuke of Trump's, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell issued a statement saying the withdrawal of U.S. forces would only benefit Russia, Iran, and the Assad regime. Senator Marco Rubio tweeted that the administration has made a grave mistake. A pivotal figure in the Ukraine scandal will face Congress today as part of the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, will appear for a joint deposition before 3 House committees. He is facing intense scrutiny for text messages released by lawmakers last week. In one exchange, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, called the idea of withholding security assistance for help with a political campaign crazy. To which Sondland responds, there are no quid pro quos of any kind, before suggesting they stopped texting about it. A wild story out of Illinois. A woman came home to find that lodged in her ceiling. That's a wheel. Linda Taylor Witt and her family went out to dinner and came home to find the plaster all over the floor and the wheel dangling from the roof of their bathroom. Well, the family lives just blocks away from an airport. FAA officials say it appears to be a dolly wheel from a helicopter. They're now looking into who it belongs to. Better a dolly helicopter than an actual wheel of a plane, Brian.
Yeah, I was wondering. My first thought was, has anybody checked in on the pilot of the plane? But it's a helicopter, so glad everybody's all right. That's weird. All right, Francis, thank you very much. All right, when we come back here on Worldwide Exchange, Democrats looking to hammer out some final details for the new NAFTA, and they are traveling to Mexico to help get it done. Plus, how the Trump administration is using trade deals to help protect certain companies from unwanted legal battles. A really interesting big tech story you got to hear. We have it coming up.
Whether your beauty routine...
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Hearing is an underrated miracle. Intimate whispers, the lushness of symphonies, the soothing patter of rain on leaves. If you had that taken away from you, it would be a massive loss for most of us. Almost all of us go every day without really stopping to think about just how important it is to us.
Audible presents The Body, a guide for occupants, written and read by Bill Bryson, including original bonus material exclusively available at Audible. Listen free as part of your 30-day trial, $7.99 a month after 30 days, renews automatically.
Here at LNER, we love giving you more value. And we all love more, don't we? More sleep, more sun, more me time. So we've added our new Azuma trains with more seats and more great value fares. In fact, there are 3,773 more £29 single tickets every week on our Azuma trains between London and Leeds. Brilliant. Book direct to lner.co.uk. Launching alongside existing LNER trains.
So you want to go to Manchester, but how? About time you invented your own form of transport. What are you thinking? A kind of seat on wheels? Great. With free Wi-Fi, fancy food and some tiny bottles of wine? Yeah. And this invention, it goes at 125 miles an hour with toilets? You mad genius. What is this totally original creation of yours? Oh, wait. You're going to kick yourself when you realise. Virgin Trains, proudly serving you for 22 years. Free Wi-Fi available across 88% of all journeys, excludes voyages.
Blacklisted, why the White House just slapped a new round of penalties on Chinese companies. Black gold seeing red, why oil stocks may take another leg down in what has already been an awful year for investors. And in the black, why analysts are giving SoftBank's biggest fund a closer look. It's not looking good. It is Tuesday, October 8th, and you're watching Worldwide Exchange right here on CNBC. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us here on this rainy Tuesday morning in New York City. I'm Brian Sullivan. Glad to have you with us. Well, what else but trade talks likely to dominate trading once again. The twists, the turns, they just keep coming. And the markets, they've been mirroring them. Down big early last week, then back up, lost about 100 yesterday.